Avatar 2: The Way of the Water by James Cameron has been out since December 22nd of 2022. The big blockbuster film has grossed over $1.4 billion worldwide, captivating audiences with its underwater 3D graphics on the fictional world of Pandora. For those that have seen the film, I ask you, do you feel like it held up to the hype? Hello there. My name is Jay Rhymes from The Periodic Review. Hopefully I will earn your subscription today, so don't forget to like and share this video, crush that red subscribe button, and hit that bell to turn on notifications so you don't miss a content release. Now beware, all things here will be spoiled, so definitely keep that in mind. So if you don't want the movie spoiled before you see it, obviously move on to a different video. But I want to kind of go over a few points here because I kind of want to talk about what I liked about the film and talk a little bit about what I didn't like the film and kind of some changes. I feel like if they just did some simple changes, they could have just done, I think, a worldly better job with the storytelling. Now, the first things first, obviously, we have to give credit where credit is due. I have to hand it to the technology and graphics producers. As if you thought it couldn't get any better from its first iteration, it certainly did it justice in this predecessor. It's absolutely beautiful. The world looks even better. The characters look even more lifelike and more real. And with the addition of the underwater shots, it just gives it a whole new breadth and depth to this world. And so it's a really beautiful thing to watch. Now, the acting of Sam Worthington and Zoe Saldana were much more in sync and much more consistent than the first film, which was a welcomed experience. I really did enjoy their acting. It was definitely much more on point. There wasn't like too many broken parts where you feel like, like Neytiri was, saying things like with a certain accent and then all of a sudden with a more English accent and then back and forth. So it was very much more consistent through this film. And I got to tell you, it was such a beautiful thing to experience. The fight scenes were played out in a more believable fashion than in the first film, as well as better sequences that made you feel like the characters were in peril. You could actually see more blood. So when people actually got hurt, you're just like, oh my gosh, they're actually hurt. So it seemed like it did a really good job with those kinds of things. And the last point of what I really liked is that it was great to see a new expansion of the world with the water people. So we can assume that there are more types of races in the Na'vi people. And so I'm sure fans are hoping that we see more races in the upcoming films. I'm hoping that it's not just, the air people of the Ometakaya and then these water people, which I don't think there was an actual term or word for those, for that particular people. But I really hope that they expand that a lot more and make it even a bigger universe. It'd actually be really cool. Now, here's the things that I didn't like about the film. And I think watching some of the videos that I have in the link in the description down below for my sources, you'll kind of understand where I'm coming from. As I did see the film, even though I am very, very hesitant to do any kind of help with anything that involves Disney. However, I just had to see what this was all about because there was a lot of hype behind it. But the storytelling was well below average. With a missing 13 years, they were rushed, as well as the overall story arc was eerily similar to the first Avatar film. And I feel like that was a very big disservice to the fans who really wanted to have a more in-depth and more breadth of the story. And it seemed like the focus went into the technology and how flashy can we make this and what are the cool scenes that we can make rather than telling a good story. And that's really unfortunate here. The scenes and shots, which were purely designed for the 3D watching moviegoers, were more distracting than interesting to experience. However, this is also coming from someone who feels that 3D is more than just it's just more a gimmick than anything. And it's not really helpful to telling a good story. It's not a good storytelling tool. And so I kind of feel like they lost a lot of the story with just making good scenes to make the 3D look cool. Now, bringing back Quaritch's character, now in an avatar body all of his own, and he doesn't have a human attached to it. So that's kind of interesting. They could have been better laid out, which could have made it more believable. They just kind of went, well, we used your DNA and somehow we got your consciousness into this other body. Now, the first film obviously made it really, really important that you had to have consciousness and the body, and the two weren't mutually exclusive, meaning that you couldn't put a consciousness in the body permanently. It had to be done through technology, and it can only be temporary. So that's something they kind of, that was a law, I guess, or kind of like a a technological thing that they made in this film that we were made to understand, and then they just kind of broke it in the second film. So that was kind of odd. I would have started the film. This is how I would have started the film. Instead of going over that 20-minute, like very, very, very short prologue of what happened over the past 13 years, I actually would have started it where we left off with when Quaritch apparently died in his little mech suit. After everybody left, I would have actually had the Sky People, the humans, come down, like a really elite, like covert, a Black Ops group comes in. They take his body, they throw him in a cryo chamber, stick him up onto another rocket, send him back to Earth. He gets patched up. They start growing his body so that he can jump into an avatar body and then ship him back. That would have made more sense than just cloning him and saying, oh, well, somehow he has consciousness and he remembers everything. We have all of his memories. It just would have made more sense. And I think it would have made it more believable. Now, obviously I could be wrong about that, but these are the things that go through my mind when I watch these kinds of films. And with that being said, the whole spider character, this little human boy that apparently is Quaritch's kid, there was no storytelling or helping you understand like who he had the relationship with and how that kid came about. I mean, there wasn't really a lot of great storytelling around that. And honestly, the spider boy just didn't make any sense and it didn't really add to it. Honestly, I would have just cut that character completely out of the film completely. And it would have been a wildly better film without that character. And there was there was very little society building, which was very interesting, of the water people, which in the previous film, we had a lot more society building with the Metakaya watching Jake slowly go through these different, acts of of becoming a part of the people and becoming a man within their society. And he has to go through all these different tasks, all these different tests. He has to, read the trails. He's got to, connect with AWA. He's got to connect with his brothers of the animals and the trees and stuff like that. There was nothing with that with these people. And so I thought it was really interesting that a lot of the time that was made up of trying to make this look as pretty as we possibly could, they kind of lacked in a lot of the story building when it comes to this other people that we just learned about that deal with underwater stuff. So I just kind of feel like it seemed really easy to ride one of the water creatures and pop goes the weasel. You're one of them. That was pretty much the whole breadth and width of the water people, which apparently don't have a name or I just don't remember it. Now, most films have a perspective from one character in which the story unfolds through their experiences, through their eyes, through them interacting with other characters. Now, unfortunately, the story in Avatar 2: Way of the Water, the story seemed to jump around way too much from one character to another, trying to connect like different storylines. And the story just seemed fractured and slow and uninteresting. And unfortunately, like there's some stories that you can do fractional storylines. I think Lord of the Rings was probably the best example of following like 3 different groups and kind of keeping the story together and then having them all connect in the end. And in this, it just kind of like had all these stories spinning around and they kind of sort of connected, but not really. And it just was uninteresting and slow. And not to mention the 3-hour length time of this film could have easily been pared down to 2, even like 2 hours and 20 minutes. Like the most glaring point, I'll have to say lastly, is with Grace's avatar. After Grace dies and her avatar doesn't get linked up through AWA, and all of a sudden in this story, you see Grace's avatar and it's pregnant. So Grace's avatar is giving birth through some immaculate conception, which isn't explained or anything like that of her avatar body. And what's really interesting is the different reviews and interviews I've seen of James Cameron talking about Sigourney Weaver is that they just wanted her back. So they just kind of implanted her in there without making a really good story behind it. Now, Kiri's character is really interesting, and I think there's a lot of great development that they can do with Kiri's character, but they could have easily have just made Kiri one of Jake and Neytiri's kids, and it would have sat just fine in the story. And then tell the story through the eyes of the second youngest. I think because we're kind of, we're kind of developing the posterity of Jake and Neytiri. I think it's really important that they kind of set up these secondary characters and their kids and kind of put it through their eyes. And I think if they did that through the second youngest boy of Loak, I think that could have made the storytelling far more interesting rather than just bouncing around and just kind of not really having a really good idea of how the story is going to develop through who. That's just my 2 cents worth it. But in conclusion, although the graphics of the world were incredible, like it really is beautiful, it is incredible, it's amazing, but I don't think they made up for the unnecessary characters and bad storytelling. Now, this is just my opinion, so I'm just going to say honestly, I'll have to give this film a below average rating of a 6 out of 10. But who knows? Obviously, I could be wrong, and you're going to tell me down in the comments section. So all of our sources and links are in the video's description down below. And from my family to yours, good night. Today's video is sponsored by viewers like you, so thank you. If we earned your subscription today, don't forget to hit that red subscribe button, click that damn bell, and turn on your notifications so you don't miss a content release. The best way to support the channel is to like this video, share it with family and friends, and don't forget to leave a comment down below. Send all of your topic ideas, articles, and video links to theperiodicreview@gmail.com. All of our links are in the description down below.